You know that feeling when you check your bank account, and for once, you don't immediately close the app out of panic? Instead, you catch yourself smiling. It's subtle at first, the relief of knowing that you're no longer walking the razor's edge between, I think I can afford this, and I really shouldn't. It's when you stop calculating every coffee, stop juggling due dates in your head, and stop wondering if groceries this week mean surviving on instant noodles next week. That quiet shift, that invisible click in your mind, happens at a specific number. And it's not what most people think. You've heard all the typical numbers. $1 million, 6 figures, the so-called magic net worth where people say life suddenly gets easier. But they're all missing something huge. Because there's a much smaller, far more achievable milestone that completely reshapes your relationship with money. A number that turns chaos into control, anxiety into confidence. That number, the one that quietly changes everything, is $20,000. My name is Mike, and here on Mike Compound, I spend way too much time thinking about money. Not just how to earn it, but how it changes us. How some people seem to build wealth effortlessly, while others stay trapped in the same cycle for decades. If you've ever wondered why that happens, why the same advice works wonders for one person and does nothing for another, you're in the right place. Because today, we're breaking down what really happens when you cross that first real threshold of wealth. So if you're serious about building a life where money works for you, not against you, hit that subscribe button and stick around, because this one might change how you see your entire financial journey. Now, before we dive into why $20,000 is the game changer most people overlook, let me ask you something. When you imagine building wealth, what do you see? Maybe it's a kid who inherited a trust fund, someone who never had to worry about bills. Or maybe it's a quiet grinder, the kind of person who spends years slowly saving, investing, and sacrificing while the world scrolls past. We all picture something. But the truth is, wealth building rarely works the way we imagine. Because hidden inside that process are thresholds, invisible barriers that divide the people who stay stuck from the people who start to rise. These thresholds act like checkpoints in a game. Once you pass one, everything that comes after plays by a new set of rules. And the first real threshold, the one that flips your entire financial reality, sits right at $20,000. Now this might sound arbitrary, but think about it this way. If you've ever tried to push a heavy boulder up a hill, you know that the hardest part isn't keeping it moving. It's getting it started. The first few feet are brutal. You're straining, sweating, pushing with everything you've got, and it feels like nothing's happening. But once that boulder finally starts rolling, once momentum kicks in, everything changes. It becomes smoother, faster, almost effortless. That's what $20,000 is. It's the moment your financial boulder crests the hill. Before that point, everything feels like a grind. You're working hard but making little progress, fighting against the weight of every bill, every emergency, every setback. After that point, the rules flip. Suddenly, gravity, the thing that used to pull you down, starts working for you. Your effort begins to multiply instead of just sustain. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is something most people never realize. The difference between being below $20,000 and above it isn't just about math. It's not only about having more money to invest or better returns. The real change happens in your mind. When you have little or no savings, your brain operates in what psychologists call survival mode. Every decision runs through the filter of scarcity. You take jobs you hate because you can't afford to say no. You stay in situations that drain you because leaving feels too risky. You say yes to things you don't want to do simply because you need the paycheck. This isn't weakness or lack of discipline, it's biology. Your brain literally can't plan for growth when it's locked in survival mode. It's like trying to design a dream home while your house is on fire. All your mental bandwidth goes toward putting out flames, not building something new. But once you cross that $20,000 mark, something subtle but profound happens. The panic quiets down. Your brain stops asking, how do I make it to next week? And starts asking, how can I make this grow? It's no longer about survival. It's about momentum. Instead of reacting to every small crisis, you start acting strategically, building towards stability and freedom. And this isn't just theory. Research from Vanguard found that people with just $2,000 in emergency savings experienced a 21% increase in overall financial well-being. Just $2,000. That's less than the cost of a new laptop or a short vacation. But that tiny cushion creates a massive psychological shift because it gives your mind permission to breathe. Now, when you stretch that buffer into something closer to 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for many people lands around that 20,000 mark, the benefits skyrocket even further. You don't just get a little peace of mind, you gain mental freedom. You stop waking up with financial dread and start making decisions from a place of clarity, not fear. That's when wealth building truly begins, because once your mind is no longer consumed by survival, it starts to see opportunity everywhere. Most people think wealth begins with income, but in reality, it begins with breathing room. With space for your mind to think clearly, for your money to start compounding, and for your choices to stop being ruled by panic. This is why $20,000 is more than just a number in your bank account. It's the bridge between chaos and control, between reacting to life and designing it intentionally. Here's where things get really exciting, because now we move from mindset to math. And this is where you begin to see how that first $20,000 isn't just a psychological turning point, it's a mathematical one too. Let's break it down. Imagine you're saving $1 every single month and investing it at a reasonable 8% annual return. Getting to that first $20,000 takes roughly 19 months, a year and a half of discipline, sacrifice, and delayed gratification. You're budgeting, cutting expenses, saying no to impulse purchases, and maybe even picking up a side hustle to push yourself closer to the goal. It's hard. It feels endless at times, and that's exactly why most people never make it this far. But here's where everything starts to shift. Once you've reached that first $20,000, your money starts working alongside you, and the timeline for your next milestone suddenly gets shorter. Your second $20,000, the one that brings your total to $40,000, doesn't take another 19 months. It takes around 17. That's 2 entire months shaved off doing nothing different. You saved the same amount. You invested the same way. You took the same risks. But this time, your money worked for you instead of just sitting there. That's the quiet beginning of compound interest, the most powerful force in personal finance, yet the least understood. And once that flywheel starts turning, it only accelerates. By the time you're building your third set of $20,000, bringing you to $60,000 total, your timeline shrinks even more. Why? Because the $40,000 you already have is now generating income on its own, fueling your progress without any extra effort. This is the point where most people finally feel like they've figured money out. But what's actually happening is simpler. Your money is just taking over more of the heavy lifting. Here's the wild part. By the time you've built an investment portfolio of $400,000, you can generate an entire new $20,000 in just about 5 months. The same amount that took you nearly 2 years to save the first time happens almost automatically through growth and compounding. That's the snowball effect, the shift from effort-based income to asset-based income. The same principle, but now scaled. And you don't need fancy hedge funds or private investment deals to make it happen. Contrary to what people believe, the wealthy aren't necessarily using secret investment tools that are locked behind golden gates. Sure, at ultra-high levels, exclusive opportunities exist. But what drives the kind of growth we're talking about, the $20,000 effect, is something far more ordinary and far more empowering. Time, consistency, and scale. Let's make it real. If you invest $1,000 and it grows by 10% in a year, you earn $100. Not bad. But take that same growth rate and apply it to $10,000, and suddenly you've earned that's 10 times the profit, with the same investment, same time frame, same risk. This is why the $20,000 mark feels so different. It's not that you suddenly unlock new financial intelligence. It's that the scale of your results finally matches the effort you've been putting in. When your account has $2,000, a 10% gain gives you $200. Nice, but not life-changing. When you've got $20,000 earning 8% annually, that's $1,600 of growth. That's an entire rent payment. That's a new laptop. That's money you didn't have to work for. Money that appeared because your previous work is now working for you. That's the quiet power of compound interest. It doesn't shout. It doesn't feel dramatic, but it grows. Relentlessly, and with time it becomes unstoppable. Here's what most people don't realize. Once you've saved your first $20,000, you've already crossed the hardest part of the journey, because you didn't just build money. You built the discipline that made that money possible. You rewired your brain from being reactive to being deliberate. Think about everything it took to get there. You tracked your expenses. You said no to things you wanted. You resisted impulse buys. You waited. You built patience. That's not just a financial transformation. It's a psychological one. Every dollar of that $20,000 represents proof that you can delay gratification, that you can control your impulses, and that you can prioritize your long-term goals over your short-term desires. You've turned saving money into part of your identity. And that's why this milestone is so much bigger than a number. It's not just what's sitting in your bank account. It's what's changed in your mind, Borsa. Because from this point forward, every new dollar you earn feels different. You're no longer just earning to spend. You're earning to build. You've gone from surviving to strategizing. And that's when you start noticing the next big shift, the one that separates people who stay comfortable from people who eventually achieve freedom. When you have 20,000 or more saved, your relationship with opportunity transforms. You stop seeing the world as full of risks to avoid and start seeing it as full of chances to evaluate. Suddenly, when a friend mentions a small business they're launching, you don't just nod politely. You actually think about whether it's worth investing a few $1,000s. When your company offers to match 401k contributions, you finally take advantage of it. When the market dips, instead of panicking, you lean in. This is the subtle but powerful advantage of having financial breathing room. Your options expand. And when you have more options, the future stops feeling like something that just happens to you. It starts feeling like something you're shaping with intention. And that shift, that's wealth in its purest form. Because wealth isn't just about what's in your account. It's about how much control you have over your decisions, your time, and your peace of mind. The $20,000 milestone is where that control begins. It's the moment you stop being a passenger in your financial life and start taking the wheel. By the time you've saved your first $20,000, something deeper than numbers has changed. You didn't just hit a financial milestone. You rewired how your brain processes risk, reward, and opportunity. It's not about having money in the bank. It's about the kind of person you had to become to get there. Think about what it really took. You had to track your spending month after month. You had to tell yourself no dozens of times when you wanted to say yes. You had to make choices that your past self would have called boring, staying home, cooking instead of dining out, skipping impulse buys, and being okay with the slow grind of progress. You built resilience, not through luck, but through repetition. That's why $20,000 isn't just a number. It's proof. Proof that you can do hard things for long periods without giving up. Proof that you can delay gratification when it actually matters. Proof that your habits now serve your future instead of sabotaging it. And the most powerful part? That discipline doesn't just stay in your bank account. It follows you into every other part of your life. Before, you might have looked at people who were financially successful and thought they had some secret advantage. Maybe a better job, a higher income, a lucky break. But now, you understand that wealth isn't about access. It's about mindset. Because once you've proven that you can save and grow $20,000, you've proven something even more important. You can become the kind of person who keeps doing it. That shift in identity is massive. It changes how you view every financial decision. Before $20,000, buying a $4 coffee felt like a math problem. You'd mentally calculate whether that small treat would push your balance into the red or make next week a little tighter. After $20,000, you stop sweating the small stuff. You realize those micro decisions, the daily lattes, the brand of cereal, the gas station snacks, don't make or break your financial future. Because now you've learned where the real game is played. It's not about saving every dollar. It's about controlling direction, about making the big decisions right, where you live, how much you save, how you invest, and how you earn. These are the levers that move your life forward by thousands, not pennies. And when your mind finally accepts that, everything gets quieter. You stop feeling like you're constantly one wrong move away from disaster. Instead, you begin thinking strategically. You become calm, focused, intentional. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Because that sense of calm doesn't just change your finances, it changes your career. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, your job becomes your lifeline. Every decision revolves around it. You tolerate bad bosses, toxic coworkers, and unreasonable workloads because you have to. You can't afford to quit. You can't afford to risk time off for interviews. You can't afford to challenge your boss. You're trapped. and you know it. This is what psychologists call economic anxiety. It's not just about being broke, it's about being powerless. When every dollar matters, your freedom disappears. But 20,000 changes that. Suddenly, you have what I like to call walkaway money. It's not about quitting your job tomorrow. It's about knowing you could. And that knowledge alone changes everything. It changes the way you negotiate. It changes the way you show up. It even changes the energy you bring to work. You stop acting out of fear and start acting out of confidence. You don't settle for less because you know you have time to find something better. Here's the wild part. Most of the time, you'll never even need to spend your walkaway money. Just having it shifts how people treat you. You walk differently. You talk differently. You're not afraid to ask for a raise or push back when something's unreasonable, because deep down, you know you'll be fine no matter what happens. That confidence, it's magnetic. People notice. Your boss notices. Opportunities start appearing because you're not operating from desperation anymore. You're operating from abundance. And guess what happens when you show up differently? You get better assignments. You build stronger relationships. You earn more trust, and often more money. It's a positive feedback loop. The more confident and stable you become, the more opportunities open up to you. And those opportunities lead to even greater financial growth, which strengthens your confidence even more. That's the hidden power of the $20,000 threshold. It starts a chain reaction that transforms not just your finances, but your identity, your relationships, and your career trajectory. Now, most people don't talk about this next part, but it's crucial. When you reach this level of financial comfort, the world stops looking like a series of threats. It starts looking like a map of potential. When your car breaks down, it's not a disaster. It's an inconvenience. When your rent goes up, it's not a crisis. It's a signal that maybe it's time to move somewhere smarter. When a friend offers a new business idea, you're not paralyzed by fear of losing money. You're curious about whether it might actually be worth investing in. That's the real difference between scarcity and abundance. Not the amount of money you have, but the mental space you've earned to think differently. With $20,000 in your corner, life stops being something you react to and starts being something you shape deliberately. You're no longer stuck choosing between barely surviving and just getting by. You finally get to think about what's next, what's possible. And here's the beautiful irony. You'll realize that the real wealth was never just the $20,000. It was the version of you who built it. The disciplined, patient, and focused person who now understands what freedom actually feels like. Because that version of you, the one who doesn't panic when things go wrong, who can take a calculated risk, who can walk away from a bad situation, that's who's going to build everything that comes next. And that's when we get to the most critical part of all, what you do with that $20,000 once you have it. Because some people use it as the foundation for freedom, and others use it as an excuse to start over. Here's where most people mess it up. They finally cross that invisible line. They hit $20,000, feel the relief, the pride, the freedom, and then they blow it. It starts small. A voice in the back of your head whispers, "You've earned this. You've been disciplined. You deserve something nice." Maybe it's a new car. Maybe it's that long-awaited vacation. Or maybe it's a smart investment that just happens to be way beyond your means. And before you know it, the foundation you've worked so hard to build crumbles beneath you. The $20,000 wasn't a trophy. It was the soil where generational wealth could have started growing. But too often, people treat it like a finish line instead of the beginning. Here's the truth that nobody likes to hear. The hardest part of wealth building isn't reaching your first milestone, it's protecting it. The $20,000 is not a reward for good behavior. It's not a green light to spend. It's your first layer of freedom, the seed that, if you nurture it, can multiply into something extraordinary. But if you cash it out for something shiny, it dies before it ever gets the chance to grow. Think about this for a second. The average person spends more money on their car over their lifetime than it would take to achieve financial independence. It sounds absurd, but it's true. Between monthly payments, insurance, gas, maintenance, and depreciation, most people easily spend $6 to $8 in a month for decades. Over 40 years, that's more than $400,000 often on something that loses value the second you touch it. Meanwhile, they complain that they'll never be able to retire. It's like watching someone spend a fortune on a gym membership and then complain about being out of shape, all while ignoring the fact that they never actually use the equipment. Here's the kicker. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses about 20% of its value. You're not just spending money, you're actively destroying wealth. Now compare that to investing the same amount. That same $600 a month invested at a modest 8% return becomes over $1.8 million in 40 years. One represents comfort today, the other represents freedom for life. This is what changes when you have 20,000 saved. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "What is this really costing me?" That's the difference between consumers and investors. Consumers see price tags. Investors see opportunity cost. That $30,000 car, it's not just a car, it's $30,000 that could have grown into $200,000 in 20 years. It's 5 years of financial freedom traded for a fleeting sense of status. Suddenly, driving a reliable used car doesn't feel like a sacrifice anymore. It feels like a strategy. Because every dollar you keep working for you is a dollar that will one day buy you the one thing no luxury item ever can: time. That's the paradox that most people never understand. The person driving the older car is often richer than the one showing off the new one. The quiet saver is usually the one who sleeps best at night, because wealth, in its purest form, isn't loud. It's silent, steady, patient. This same perspective shift extends to every big financial decision: housing, education, hobbies, even vacations. When you start thinking in terms of opportunity cost, you stop making emotional choices and start making intentional ones. You stop asking what feels good right now and start asking what feels right 5, 10, or 20 years from now. But here's the important part. This doesn't mean living like a robot or never enjoying your money. Quite the opposite. It means choosing joy strategically. It means knowing when spending enhances your life and when it quietly steals from your future. Because once you truly understand compound growth, you realize something powerful. Almost nothing you can buy today feels as good as the freedom you'll buy tomorrow. That realization changes everything. You start spending differently. You start earning differently. You even start thinking differently. You begin to understand that the real purpose of money isn't to impress anyone. It's to buy options. Freedom is the ultimate dividend. You don't want to just afford things. You want to afford choices. The ability to say no to what doesn't serve you. The power to take time off when you need it. The confidence to pursue opportunities that might not pay off right away, but could change your life in the long run. And that's what 20,000 really gives you. Not wealth, but the foundation for wealth. The mindset that builds it, the patience that protects it, and the freedom that follows it. Because once you've reached that point, the next stages aren't just about money anymore. They're about who you become because of it. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing to prove your success to anyone else. You start realizing that the only person who needs to be impressed with your financial life is you. And maybe the most beautiful part of it all? You finally see that the finish line isn't a number. It's a feeling. The quiet confidence that you're in control, that no matter what happens tomorrow, you'll be okay. $20,000 won't make you rich overnight, but it will give you something far more valuable. Peace of mind, leverage, and the belief that you're capable of building something bigger. Because once you've done it once, you can do it again and again and again. That's how ordinary people become financially free. Not through luck or timing or magic, but through consistency, patience, and the decision to let their money work harder than they do. So start building that foundation today. Not because you have to, but because your future self deserves it. Trust me, they'll thank you for it.